This is the Microsoft Cloud Show, episode 173, where AC and I are going to look back at 2016, recorded live December 20th, 2016. The Microsoft Cloud Show is sponsored by Valid.nl. Valid's motto is Stay Ahead. Its mission is to enable its customers to excel in their business through the innovative use of IT. Valid is always on the lookout for new colleagues. If you're interested in all things happening at Azure, whether in infrastructure, SQL Server, Office 365, Power BI, SharePoint or .NET, look them up on valid.nl. Morning, AC.
Morning, CJ. You look a little more tan today.
A colleague at work said I look like I'd just been through an explosion.
You have a nice vacation down in Mexico?
I certainly did. We got out of town, out of Seattle, just in time. The day after we left, it started snowing. So we went from freezing or sub-zero temperatures up in Seattle down to in the mid 90s, which is like 33-ish in Celsius for those of you outside of the States, kind of overnight. So it was a very rude awakening getting there, but I got used to it pretty quick.
Yeah. How was it coming back though? Did you get pretty used to it pretty quick?
Yeah. No, not really.
No.
No, getting off.
You guys looked like you had a great time.
Oh, it was super fun. We had a blast. Getting off the plane was quite an awakening. It certainly woke us up, let's put it that way. But it was beautiful. It was a really nice piece of R&R, total mental reset for me. I came back a much nicer person. There you go. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad you got away and everything. And man, you won't believe what you missed while you were gone.
Yeah?
No, not really. We can just jump right into it.
Well, yeah. So this show is going to be a little interesting because it's really me catching up with you on what's happened since I've been away. Because I although I wasn't completely 100% unplugged, I try to stay away from the work stuff for the most part. So
yeah, you did a good job at disconnecting. I've got some news for you to share, and I got some news to share with you. So it'd be fun show. And then I know, like you said, we want to go back and revisit our predictions and our wishes that we had back in beginning of 2016.
Yeah. So I guess for those of you who are newish that have started listening to us in the last year, this is kind of like a family tradition, so to speak, where AC and I will make a set of predictions for the following year. And then at the end of the year, we review them and we sort of give ourselves a score on how well we think we did. And last year, I think you beat me fair and squarely, if I remember correctly, about a few. Specifically, yeah, I think it was a few good points above where I was at. So let's see how we do this year a little later in the show.
That sounds good to me. It was well, for those of you who, like CJ said, if you're new to this, if you want to go back and listen to our predictions, we did this in episode, I think 110, episode number 110 is when we did our predictions and wishes for 2016. But like you said, hey, before we do that, we got some news we can share with
let's
listeners.
Dive into some of that. Personally, I've been detoxing in Mexico, so I need to catch up on what's been happening. So you want to kick things off and lead us through a couple of items?
Absolutely. Let's get your geek on here. So I want to get you back into the full stream of your whole. Let's get you into back into the details of like all your container stuff here, since I know you guys do a lot of stuff.
I was interested in were once including beverages of an alcoholic nature.
Now, you had open containers. These are all sealed containers. So let's run those.
Perfect.
All right. So in mid-December of this year, let me just do a little bit of a backtrack here, a little bit of background explanation here. So in the container world, containers are kind of an open thing, and there's a lot of different implementations of different companies coming up with different technology stacks to implement containers. And the one that our listeners are probably most familiar with, or at least that's the one we've talked about the most, are Docker containers. And Docker is not only a technology, it's also a company. And the company was founded around not only stewarding the open source technology of Docker, and then also creating enterprise solutions for implementing Docker. There is a pretty strong movement that's been going on in the background too about making a kind of a standard API layer, in a sense, of the container technology, so that you're not just stuck with Docker, but you can actually use different things, and Docker can just be one implementation. One of these things is called, or the main one is called Container D. So if you just spell out container and then throw a D on the end, that's what it is. And what Docker has done is they've taken their Containerd and it's what they've kind of come up with, and they have spun it out. It's a core component of the Docker engine. It's the main thing that they have. They spun it out and donated it as a new community project. Docker Engine is still a complete container platform for end users. It includes a Docker API, Docker commands and services. What Containerd is it's a component that provides an industry with an open, stable, and extensible base for building non-Docker products and container solutions.
Gotcha.
So other cloud providers like Alibaba Cloud, AWS, Google, IBM, Microsoft, they've all committed to providing maintainers and contributing to this project.
Gotcha.
So nice big thing that they've pushed on here. Containerd, leverages things like the Open Container Initiative, the OCI runtime, image format specs, and the reference implementation, which is called runC. It's a good community thing that Docker's done.
Gotcha. So this is the thing that actually runs the containers itself, and then you could build out, automation or APIs or things that use that to go run containers. So you wouldn't have to necessarily run the Docker engine per se, but you could build your own engine, right? And use Containerd in there to actually run the containers. Interesting.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. That'll be interesting to see if because I can imagine that component being used in places like container as a service type offerings from different providers that don't necessarily use Docker or Swarm or anything like that, but just have their own sort of container orchestration system, but want to use Containerd as the thing that runs the containers. So we might see some other options around that.
Yeah, because I know there's been a little bit of angst in the container space, specifically around with Docker, and some of the people have not really cared so much about the way that they've managed their rollouts, their releases. They don't have much of a backwards compatibility story. They don't have a good long-term support story. And I know there's been some frustrations by some larger organizations that, with Docker doing things like taking Swarm and embedding it into the Docker engine, some customers are like going, hold on a minute. What if I don't want to use Swarm? What if I want to use Kubernetes, or what if I want to use Mesos?
That's kind of interesting. And so they're sort of making Containerd like Docker was, and making Docker kind of like the full system, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
It is interesting. And hey, continuing on with this whole container thing. Now, this is not really all that new, but we haven't really talked about it much. It was actually covered at the KubeCon, at the Kubernetes conference, which we covered a little bit from a previous episode when Microsoft announced a lot of their Azure-based container stuff, like ACS supporting Kubernetes and Azure having their own container registry. There's this new thing with Kubernetes. This is really cool. They're called operators, and this has really been pushed by the CoreOS group. Effectively, what an operator is, the best way for me I can understand it is it's the same thing. It's almost like a run book or almost like a configuration. So today, if you want to stand up, let's say you want to stand up a SharePoint farm, right? There's prescriptive guidance that you can take about going through and standing up a SharePoint farm. There is a way that, with Azure, that you can say, here's an ARM template that's going to spin up a SharePoint farm. But if I want to do this in containers, there's nothing really that does all of that for you. There is, with Docker, we do have the idea of things like stacks, and we do have the idea of things like the Docker Compose file that is almost like a set of instructions on how to create this stuff. But it doesn't define what is it does to an extent, but doesn't contain what's the HA story for this? How do you go through and roll out different features of different underlying, nodes and that stuff? What operators are is effectively a way for you to create an operator and say, this is how I want to go stand up. I want to stand up a new deployment of something. So today, out of the box, there are two operators. There's one for etcd, and then another one for Prometheus. So what Prometheus is a really powerful open source monitoring, metrics, and alerting tool that's out in open source and is part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation. But what this is going to allow you to do is that instead of you having to be a Prometheus admin or a Prometheus infrastructure guy, you'll be able to go get the Prometheus operator, plug in a few different parameters, and that will be able to tell Kubernetes, hey, here's how this thing should be stood up. Here's how many different redundant pieces of this should be running, redundant pieces of this that should be running. It's similar. I think of it a little similar to what Docker has with stacks. and and how Stack works with Swarm, where you say, here's all the different services my application is going to need. Here's the high availability configuration for this. You should never have one of these containers on every single node, or you should never have these two on the same one. You should always have these two on the same one. Kubernetes operators is basically the same way. And so CoreOS has come up with this. They put it out. They built a couple different operators, and they made it to where you can create your own operators that understand these things with different parameters in. So think about it almost like a Docker stack file, but with a little more logic around it and not just a YAML file.
Yeah, I see. Gotcha. A little more abstraction.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. I have 3 more.
Yep.
I'll go through these kind of quick here because I know we want to get to our predictions.
Yeah, fire away.
All right, so the first one is an Azure related. Well, all 3 are Azure related. One of them is around application insights. And this is a new change that is coming to application insights that customers should be aware of, something that I need to get on and update a couple of my sites. And that is that application insights will soon no longer accept telemetry data submitted via HTTP. It will only accept it submitted via HTTPS. And that means that you're going to want to get your sites updated to HTTPS, which
Hold on.
in reality,
say that one more time.
So application insights is only going to accept data via an HTTPS post, no longer an HTTP post.
Gotcha.
And so calling a secure service is something you don't want to get the warnings for when you post from an insecure site to a secure site, or vice versa.
Don't you only get warnings if it's from a secure to an insecure?
Yes, you do. And so the difference here is that if you have set up application insights, if you were already submitting data to application insights via HTTP, you're going to want to update your sites to submit them via HTTP.
I see. Gotcha. Right.
Which that kind of goes hand in hand too with a lot of the other SSL stuff that's going on. I mean, the latest, starting in January of next year, I think, of 2017, Google is going to start penalizing sites that are not HTTPS. And we're already starting to see the next version of Chrome, which is in the betas right now, is already flagging in the URL that if there's any kind of a login or submission thing in the URL, it actually says, it doesn't say the site is dangerous. It just says it's not secure or it's not encrypted.
Yep. Yeah, it comes up with that little sort of circle with a cross through it or something, doesn't it? It makes it look like it's super dodgy, but it's not as dodgy as it makes it look.
Yeah, so if you go to a site that requires a login that doesn't have HTTPS, and if you're using the Chrome Canary version, which is using the latest version, I think it's in Chrome 56 or 57. The production Chrome is version 55 as of the time we're recording this. But 56 or 57, that's the one that adds in this little change to the URL. So it's definitely something you want to pay attention to. I know I'm going in and trying to figure out the whole Let's Encrypt thing for a couple of my Azure sites to get them updated pretty soon.
Speaking of Let's Encrypt, that's the whole free SSL program or project, I guess, that's going on, right? That seems still ludicrously hard to do in Azure, for Azure websites.
There's a couple of posts that actually, the part that's hard about it is that you have to kind of renew, or you kind of have to like say, hey, my certificate's still good. It's not like indefinite.
Yeah, but there's some plugins that help you do that on the fly and renew it and update it and do all that sort of stuff. But it requires like all this setting up principles and all these various things. At least when I last looked at it, I don't know if you've got a simpler way of doing it, but maybe we can discuss that another time.
Yeah, that's something it's on my list of things to do to our site. And I've seen some people have done some things to automate this to make it easier. And there apparently is what do they call it? Like an Azure website extension.
Yeah.
That you can just snap in and it does it all for you without you having to do any kind of coding or anything.
Oh yeah, there's no coding required, but you still need to go create service principals and stuff like that in your account and all this sort of stuff. Anyway, we can talk about that another time. Free SSL.
Yeah.
That's good.
Free SSL. Yep. So, and then the last two things I'll throw out there are two document DB things. First, there's a paper that came out which talks about the total cost of ownership of running a NoSQL database. It's a pretty good article here. It was by a principal engineering manager on the document DB team. I'm going to destroy this name, unfortunately. Kirill Gravulik. So go to the link, and his name is in the first sentence. So what this is, he compares the total cost of ownership of running a NoSQL database for the following scenarios. If you're using like an open source database like Cassandra or Mongo hosted on-prem, or if you're using one of those databases hosted in Azure VM, or if you're using a NoSQL database as a service like DocumentDB.
Oh, I'd love to.
And so he looks at Yeah, so it's a pretty good paper. Came out in late November or mid-November. I didn't see it until just recently, and it's really good reading.
Gotcha. Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely love to take a look at that. We're going through some discussions for a particular type of data where we store it right now, and part of it is this discussion about whether we stuff it in a database or whether we put it in a NoSQL DB or whether we stick it in blob storage or table storage and all sorts of things like that. So, yeah, I'd love to take a look at that.
There you go. There's another thing, this may impact your decision as well, that DocumentDB has now introduced something called change feed support. So this is going to give you a sorted list of documents within a document database collection in the order which they were modified. You could use this feed to listen for modifications to data within the collection and perform certain actions like trigger a call to an API when a doc is inserted or modified, perform real-time stream processing on updates, or synchronize data with a cache, search engine, or data warehouse. Think about like Azure Search or something like that.
Yeah, gotcha. That's interesting. That's almost like a little bit like Service Bus or something, right? Where you put something into DocDB and then something else gets notified out the other side.
It's pretty cool. It looks pretty easy to actually to leverage that. Got a nice REST API for it and a cool little some documentation and a blog post that explains everything. So we'll put that in the show notes where people can go dive in and take a look at that.
Yeah, that's cool. Hey, I got one real quick thing that I just noticed yesterday, that the Microsoft Graph, so graph.microsoft.io, their beta endpoint has some new functionality that just got added, and it's not in their changelog yet. Delta query. So this is the ability to track changes in particular collections of resources. So things like if you want to be notified when user accounts change, be able to query for everything that's changed since the last time you queried. That's what Delta Query can give you.
Very
This was in the Azure AD Graph some time back, and we at Hyperfish we actually use it with the Azure AD Graph, but now they've bought a version of that slightly different to the Microsoft Graph. So you can subscribe for things like changes on messages, groups, and users currently. So messages in your inbox, for example, groups and user accounts as well. So you can say, hey, just give me everything that's changed, all the users that have changed, properties or what have you, attributes, new or deleted users, that sort of thing. You can call the Delta Query API to do that.
Very cool.
Kind of interesting.
Very cool.
It kind of works pretty similar to the way the Azure AD Graph Delta Query used to work, but now it's in Microsoft Graph.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hey, before we dive into our predictions, why don't we break real quick for a message from one of our fantastic sponsors. The Microsoft Cloud Show is sponsored by Rencore. Rencore is a market leader in the code analysis space. Founded and driven by high-profile international SharePoint and Office 365 experts, their main goal is to help any organization using Microsoft's enterprise productivity environments to work more efficiently by providing software that optimizes and secures their collaboration solutions. Rencore's most recognized product, the SharePoint Code Analysis Framework, SPCAF, is the de facto standard for verifying the quality, compliance, and governance of SharePoint and Office 365 customizations. If your company is using SharePoint or Office 365 and you're struggling to get your Office 365 and SharePoint customizations under control, check them out at spcaf.com to learn all the ways SPCAF can help you. All right, AC. So, the time has come, my friend. We are going to look back at our 2016 predictions, laugh at some of our silliness, revel in our successes, and cry at our losses.
Let's go.
This really is a point of pride for us, isn't it? I mean, we really...
or sorrow. Or
sorrow, yes. So how about we do this? How about we go one for one through our predictions? And we actually split this up. If you haven't listened to episode 110, I think it was 110, for our predictions for 2016, we gave some predictions and then we also gave some wishes. So we said, here's what we think is going to happen in 2016. And then we also said, here's what we would like to see happen as well, which were not quite as strong as predictions, but, they were more like what we would like Microsoft to go do. Mm-hmm. So, why don't we go one for one through the predictions? I know you had a few more than I did, so we'll go through. I think I had 3, you had 5. So we'll go through them. We'll give ourselves a score, and then we'll dive into the wishes after that.
Okay, that sounds good to me.
So AC, your first prediction Apple down on new products or uninspiring products?
Yeah, so by that I meant that it was going to be kind of an off year from previous years where I was going to be disappointing in new releases of products and stuff, and everyone's going to hotly anticipate, hey, what's next? And then it's going to be, oh, that's disappointing.
Yeah. I'd give you a solid yes, you got this, just personally. I mean, there's been some new Apple products, don't get me wrong, but they've all been like iterative, pretty small and incremental things.
How does that work? Does that work?
That works perfect. I hope you have the Imperial March for a no.
Shoot, no, I don't.
quick. No, I'm kidding. So yeah, I think you got this. I think, yeah, like I said, most have been pretty just iterative releases. Like there's been a new iPhone and it's cool, but it's not like mind-blowing. I mean, the most mind-blowing thing is what they took away, not what they added.
Man. So you've got an iPhone 7. I have an iPhone 7 now as well.
Yeah.
Have you been bitten the ass as many times as I have without having the right headphones with you?
No, to be honest, not really. Maybe a little bit on this trip to Mexico. Like the only time I really had that I got bitten the ass was on the airplane, where I was using my iPad for most things, but I wanted to listen to a particular podcast, and so I got out the dongle and plugged it in. And that's primarily because I lost my Bluetooth headphones.
Oh, ouch. Yeah, so
it wasn't a major problem, but
I have the dongle, the little lightning to headphone jack dongle in my my Bluetooth, or not my Bluetooth, my Bose headphones, and I have that in that case. But when I'm like running to the pool to take my kids to swim practice, or if I'm listening to it, I took them another time I was listening to it. I always am grabbing like the headphones I usually grab, and I sit there with my phone and I look at them like, damn it.
Yeah, the one thing that didn't bite me in the ass, the reverse, whatever that is down in Mexico. I went sailing I won the Hobie Cat regatta, which was pretty exciting.
Very good.
And I took my phone with me, and it was for the first time I was ballsy enough to take my phone on a Hobie Cat because it's kind of it's water resistant enough that means that if I get a splash, I'm okay. And so I did like that. But anyway, so yes, I think you solidly got a 1 for Apple down on new products and uninspiring. Definitely a goodie on that one.
Cool. All right. So you have your first one is the Microsoft market share for Office 365 skyrockets. And I'm going to give you a solid yes on that one. That was impressive. Microsoft is Office 365 is continuing to really be the leader for the intelligent cloud and driving revenue for and profitability for the cloud for Microsoft. I mean, every quarter we see the numbers come out, and it's just going up, up, and up, and it's pretty damn impressive.
Yeah, it's it's not a bold prediction on my part. I think it was a really safe one, to be honest. But it was, I think it's fair to say Microsoft is absolutely cleaning Google's clock, and especially in enterprise. Maybe not in super small business, but definitely in enterprise. So they're doing great.
Yeah, I agree. They've done a really good job with that.
Okay, so 1 for 1. Number 2, AC. Microsoft's slower rate of growth progress, less new products, consolidation versus new stuff.
I don't think I did a good job with it. You like my sound?
I really did. This makes me sad that you say that you didn't get this, but also happy that you didn't get this, right?
Yeah, I didn't. I expected it to be a down year. I expected it to be a bit of a down year at Microsoft, and I didn't see that. Teams was a big boost right there. We saw very soon after we did our predictions, we saw that Microsoft announced a feature pack for SharePoint, and they released it and shipped it. We saw them push out the SharePoint, a new dev model for the SharePoint framework. We've seen that in developer preview with pretty frequent updates to it, regardless of what I know it's a bit controversial on how what people like it or dislike it, but regardless, it's a new dev model and they've shipped it, and it's pretty good for what it is. There's that side. You saw the Surface Studio come out, which I got a chance to see one of those things up close in person.
It's nice.
It's not only nice, but here's the thing. We were in the store this past weekend. We walked in there, and I wanted to see it in person. I wanted the kids to see it. My wife saw it. But what was impressive is there was a lady sitting next to us who had been there for about 45 minutes to an hour. She'd never used one, never drawn on a screen before. She was she's a painter, and the work that she did in about 45 minutes blew me away. It was absolutely gorgeous. And so I asked her a few questions, and a lot of the stuff what you and I talked about, like how would an artist do about writing on glass with no friction and all that kind of stuff? She said, you know what? You forget about it in about 5 or 10 minutes. And she said she was like, how much she really liked it. The only thing she didn't like about it was the price tag, but she absolutely loved the device. And to see what she came out, first time she ever drawn on a screen, and to see the work that she came out with in about 45 minutes was pretty impressive. I know you were offline a lot on vacation, but if you go back in my Facebook feed and see the picture, something from, I think, this past Saturday.
Yeah, I think I saw that. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Looks really nice. Yeah. Really cool. Okay, so that's so number 2, slower rate of growth from Microsoft with progress, less new products, consolidation versus new stuff. Sadly, a no on that one.
All right, so I got one for you. You said end of unicorns, enter unicorn tears. Now, I went back and I gave us a first pass on what I rated these, and I put a bunch of question marks, like going, I remember what you said, but I don't know if this is, if you nailed it or if you missed it. So you got to tell me which sound to play. It's like, I'm ready.
I'm going to give myself a no on this one.
A no, the fail trombone.
Yeah, and here's why. I was expecting the market to fall out of the bottom of unicorns, and in some respects, I think it did a little. People got a whole lot more cautious, for sure, and you don't see all the conversation about like, oh my God, I've got to be a $1 billion startup. That's the only goal. But people are focusing more on the right stuff now. So, and I think the market's slowly turning on that. So the bottom didn't fall out of it entirely, for sure. But we're talking less and less about unicorns now. And we're talking more and more about, businesses that have sound business practices and more profitability and stuff. So I think the right thing happened, but I don't think the bottom dropped out of the unicorn market like I thought it was going to.
Well, there you go. So
that's a no for me.
You got a no on that one.
Okay. Number 3, this is ballsy, I thought, AC. Number 3, Yammer dies.
Dude, I'm so disappointed in this one. I totally missed it, and I'm really disappointed I missed it because I can't stand Yammer, and I really wanted to see it die too. This was part of my wish, and this was part of prediction, and it didn't happen.
So, in the spirit of circling the drain, I'd actually give you half marks on this because I think this thing is a dead man walking, and it's only a matter of time. So although you wish to see Yammer die, this is like watching it die a slow, painful, methodical death. It
really is. Oh my God! It's like watching liberals as Trump goes to take the inauguration. Sorry.
Oh, the bird! Don't do it, man. It still hurts. Anyway.
Yeah, okay. Anyway, so hey, I'm not supporting anybody. Anyway, so yeah, it's disappointing. And I even saw a post on Medium the other day or yesterday or something where I think that the title of the Medium thread or their post is "We are Yammer."
We're still alive.
I swear they should have put the freaking kid. They should have put the clip in there from Monty Python. I was like, going, I'm not dead yet.
Just put a scratch.
I'll be better in the morning. You'll be stone dead.
Oh dear! Don't mention it. Oh gosh. Anyway. Yes. Well, you said Yammer didn't die. You're correct. It didn't actually die. It is still alive and kicking. But I would say it's on life support. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It is. I'm trying to get it there, man.
That was funny.
For anybody that freaks out, no, you didn't leave the baby in the back seat. You dropped him off at Okay,
right, so what's the score on the board? Oh, I guess let's do my number 3 first, and then we'll do a quick tally, and then we'll get into your last couple.
Yeah. So let's see. What are we? We are you're right now. I think we're 1-1. Oh no, sorry. I've 1 yes and 2 no's for my predictions. I've missed out on 2 predictions. I got 1 right, and you're a 1-1. But the last one that you've got here is home automation takes off with Alexa, with smart things, with connected homes and devices. And man, I got to tell you, you're nailing it, man. It's going nuts. In fact, we had a great discussion about it off the record in a recent interview I did with Ben Stedgink and Scott Hogue down in Orlando for a conference. They were showing me some of the stuff that they were doing. Scott's done some really cool stuff. I really want to add this, start adding some of this stuff to my house, man. The world has come around quite a bit.
I am adding more and more of this stuff every month as my wife will let me.
It's funny. Ben was like going, yeah, it's just so expensive. And Scott goes, I figured it out. All you have to, I hope Scott's wife isn't listening to this. He says, I figured it out. He goes, if just everyone, and my wife is in the room though, so this kind of sucks. I'm shooting myself in the foot. But every once in a while, a box on Amazon shows up for like 20 or 30 bucks. And she's like, what is this about? And he's like, oh, I don't know. Let me open it and see. Oh, cool. Look, it's a new switch. Or hey, it's a new door lock. Or hey, it's a new outlet. So he's like, she loves it once they're there. She just doesn't like the price tag. So he's
That's
like,
right. You got to drip feed it. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't eat the elephant one big bite. You do one small bite at a time. Spouse
acceptance factor is definitely an important thing in this area. So I recommend doing it slowly. My wife was a non-believer to begin with, and but she's over the line now. And I got my coffee machine, I got our patio lights, I got outdoor lights, indoor lights, I got motion sensors that detect when we get up out of bed in the morning and turn on certain lights depending on whether it's sunrise yet, all sorts of stuff. It's really cool.
Oh, I really need that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
So that's number 3. So we've done 3 each. Now you actually had a couple of extras, so this is kind of nice. I stuck with, or I should say, I only had 3. Number 4 from AC. Twitter has a profitable quarter.
Hey, technically they did. Now they had to fire a bunch of people to do it, but
yeah. No, this is they seem to be wanting to turn this corner, which is nice.
As a stockholder, which I guess I should disclose that I am a stockholder of Twitter, a depressed and begrudged stockholder of Twitter, they did do a profitable quarter. This is one of the most interesting ones, right? Everyone uses it, or everyone. So many people use Twitter. It's still such a strong medium for reaching out to people and getting news out and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Yet nobody wants to buy it. And it's like a fire sale. Everyone that's looked at it, from Salesforce to Google to everyone that's looked at it is like going, yeah, we're not interested. Yeah, we're not interested.
I think it boils down to them demanding too much money, and their user growth has stalled, basically.
Yeah, it's surprising.
Yeah. I mean, I still love it. It's a great way to keep up with what's going on. So yeah, nice job on that one. That was an excellent one. Number 5, Node grows up.
I'm going to give myself a yes on this one.
Oh yeah. Good job.
I think that Node has definitely grown up quite a bit. I think we've seen them do a good job in pushing their long-term support, constantly shipping updates. They've got a good cadence going going forward with this, and we're seeing a lot of people that you would not normally see adopt Node, and not for adopting it as far as like a development technology or a hosting technology or whatever, but at least in a tooling technology. Microsoft is adopting it big time on the Office side. It's a great way to get dev tooling out there. So to me, it's grown up quite a bit, and it's definitely not going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, nice job.
Thank you.
So looking at our predictions, I got 2 out of 3. You got 3 out of 5. I think that's pretty good, actually. I think we're pretty ballsy on some of those. Some others not so much, but I think we did pretty well overall for 2016.
I concur. I think we did a fairly decent job there.
Now we get into the fun stuff, wishes. But before we do that, let's chat with one of our fantastic sponsors. The Microsoft Cloud Show is sponsored by ShareGate. ShareGate makes it easier for organizations to adopt and use the latest Microsoft productivity tools, helping millions of users to be happier and more productive at work. ShareGate is trusted by over 10,000 IT admins from over 110 countries to manage, migrate, and secure their SharePoint and Office 365 environments. ShareGate is recognized as the must-have tool for day-to-day administration of on-premises, cloud, and hybrid environments. Interested in learning more? Check them out at sharegate.com to learn how ShareGate can make you more productive. All right, AC. Now we get into the fun stuff. We get into the sort of the more not outrageous really, just things we wish we were going to see out of Microsoft, or not just Microsoft, across the board really for 2016. So why don't each of us just list off what our wishes were real quick, walk through them, and see how we did. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go first. I'll read off mine, and I'll give you my wishes. This is stuff that I was hoping to see in 2016. Do you want us to go give our reviews for it, as my reviews for what I saw happen, and you commented on after I do it, or you want us to read them all out first? No, go for it. Yeah. Go with it. See how you did.
All right. So my first one was I was hoping to see Microsoft be more open to an adopting of cross-platform or really affirming their cross-platform dedication, such as I mentioned a couple things like a CLI for Office 365, more use of Node.js, and more open source. I'm going to give myself a sort of on this one. We did not see a CLI for 365, nor do I see that on the horizon. We did see Node get a lot more adoption, specifically from the SharePoint team, which is probably the one spot that I least expected to see Node get used. And it's really around the dev tooling for the SharePoint framework. And then same thing with open source. Now, from a more meta thing, yes, Microsoft has gotten much more cross-platform around this. They've even released a version of Visual Studio for Mac OS. That's a pretty big deal as well.
For Linux as well. That's pretty decent.
For Linux was a pretty big deal as well, yeah. So to me, I'm going to give myself kind of a sort of on this one because I said a CLI for 365, but I think I got most of my wishes here in seeing the direction Microsoft is going. And hey, we started seeing add-ins really showing up inside of the Office for Mac.
Yeah.
For it's a compose thing. So I'm seeing Boomerang and stuff in there, but it's weird. Sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes it does. It's like it kind of comes and goes. Huh. My second wish that I had was Docker a first-class citizen in Azure. That's not only a hell yes for things like ACS, the Azure Container Service, but really seeing containers as a first-class citizen in Azure. We learned a lot about that from our interview with Scott Guthrie. I think that was episode 168 or 165. Sorry, 165. And a lot of the announcements they had from the Connect show that they did. Now ACS supports not only Docker Swarm, but DCOS from Mesos and Kubernetes as well. A lot of tooling updates that are in private registry. I'm impressed with Microsoft really. And after sitting down with Scott, I really not only am impressed with their direction, but I understand all the different offerings that they have and why they're offering in a way and giving people the most use to it.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think they got a much better story than AWS in terms of options and not having to be so proprietary on the AWS's, I think they call it the Elastic Container Service.
Yeah.
It's much more open.
Yeah, nice.
My third wish was for a MacBook Pro refresh. And I'm going to give myself a no. And I know before in our pre-show that we talked about here, you were like, wait a minute, we got a refresh. Like, yeah, but it's a piece of So I've played with it. I went into the store and I've actually played with the new MacBook Pro. The touch bar, it's gimmicky, but it doesn't bother me. And it's kind of nice. And actually, my wife sat down and she was typing something out and it does the whole predictive typing. And she typed out an entire sentence she typed a few words, and then she just chose one of the three words that it kept suggesting on the touch bar. Came up with a pretty good sentence in terms of what she was trying to say. I liked it. The keyboard doesn't really bother me. I would think that you'd get used to it pretty quick. The screen is beautiful. I love the size of the machine. The guts of the machine is what's disappointing to me.
Just not enough to really, for you to consider it a proper refresh, is what you're saying.
No, it's not. I mean, which is disappointing because I've got a 3-year-old MacBook Pro and I really wanted to be tempted to go out and go buy a new one. And I'm not. I mean, that's not a refresh from year to year. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
A refresh from over 3 years and not having anything, that's disappointing.
Fair enough.
Apparently that they were supposed to see another refresh coming next year in 2017. And that one's going to have a more current, a more updated CPU from Intel. That's going to be I think it's called the KB Lake chip. It wasn't. They say it wasn't ready. Actually, some of the reports that I see says it's not ready. But then again, a lot of the reports I'm seeing from people using the new MacBook Pros say that thing shouldn't even been shipped because of all the issues they're having with GPUs and heat right now. So I'm glad I didn't do that one.
Yeah, I think I got a MacBook Pro probably a year and a bit ago, just over a year ago, I guess. And I don't see anything tempting.
No. The last thing that I had as a wish was an Office 365 store that works. And I didn't get that.
Has anything changed?
Not that I've seen.
No.
I think that's just a massive miss by Microsoft and not being able to make it a better story there. So
yeah, I don't know what's going on there. It's thoroughly annoying.
We got a mutual friend that actually he built a business around the add-in model and using the store for commercial apps or add-ins. And man, you get him on the record talking about it, and he is so disappointed in it, and he's like, it's to the point where I would be surprised if he would bet the farm on the next thing he built being so tied into another model that Microsoft shipped.
Yeah.
So
it just doesn't seem to have innovated.
Nah. So for my wishes of my 4, I'm going to give myself a 1 on a 1 for got what I want. I'm going to give myself kind of a 1 for the kind of got it with the open source confirmation. The 1 yes was for Docker and containers being a first class citizen in Azure. And I'm going to give myself 2 big no's on my wishes for the MacBook Pro refresh and the Office 365 store that actually works.
Gotcha. Nice job.
Yeah. So you've got 3 here.
I do. Let me list those off. Number 1, CJ's wishes. Docker and Azure grows up, fully managed container service. 50-50 on this one. I kind of got the beginning part, like, first-class citizen in Azure kind of thing. Docker and Azure has definitely grown up. We've got Azure Container Service, we've got Kubernetes, we've got Mesos clusters, we've got the whole 9 yards. But we don't have a fully managed container service, which is a little disappointing to me, at least. I would like to see that. But I know kind of why they're heading in the direction they are, so I don't blame them. So, yeah, that's kind of a sort of.
I'm going to give you a little bit more than a 50-50, though. I mean, I'd give you like an 80-20 on that one because you don't get the fully managed service, but we're pretty darn close, and we're getting pretty darn close to that.
Yeah, I guess, there are options that are close to that, but not just push a button and magically get a cluster that you don't have to manage. Anyway, number 2. Microsoft gets good at cloud change logs for devs, better comms with customers, and managing change in the products. Yeah, this one's a tough one. I think they've gotten better, but I don't think they've gotten good. So, especially for developers, right? We are seeing they are kind of doing changelog notes for the graph now, which is nice. But they've definitely gotten much better at the docs and so forth around the graph than they have in the past. But I wouldn't exactly say that they're good at cloud change. So, that's not exactly a hit, but not exactly a miss either. I think they've definitely made improvements, but not gotten good. And my number 3 wish, Office 365 owns SMB with key app partnerships, accounting, CRM, etc., or offers them in 365. This is an interesting one. They definitely did not go as far as I want them to in this regard. They've made some partnership announcements. They haven't gone and bought small business accounting. Instead, they went and did, Dynamics 365 for things like CRM and Office 365. So they've made a lot of their own investments in the space, as well as small business apps like the Bookings app that they've got, and there's some other ones coming, I think. So they've kind of taken their own lead on this and built their own stuff as opposed to really driving it with key app partnerships. But I think they're far from owning SMB still. And so I give myself a kind of a miss on this. What I was really after was them saying we can beat Google in SMB. And they're far from that. So, overall, I'm disappointed that wish was not met.
Yeah, but they've done, I agree. If we look at it just in the SMB side, you're definitely right. But some things too, they did make a pretty big move, which can help you on the CRM side is things like, buying and closing LinkedIn. So, that's a pretty big thing. But again, that's also kind of enterprisey-ish kind of play. So,
and it's got a wee ways to play out, I think, as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, no, I thought that when they bought something and they said the deal closes, then it was going to be a success. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking about Yammer. My bad.
We have moved on from Yammer. Come on now. So, okay. So those are my 3 wishes. Honestly, I hope that I can also use these wishes for this year as well. and they make more progress in this regard. But I will rethink my wishes for our next for our prediction show with some more. So
that's funny because as I was reading mine, I was like, okay, so Yammer dies. Well, I got a no on that one, but I sure as hell hope it happens. MacBook Pro refresh, I sure hope that happens.
Yeah.
A 365 store, I kind of don't care anymore. But I don't think it's coming anymore. But I'm not going to hold my breath for them.
Yeah, gotcha. Hey, well, I think we actually did all right overall. It'll be interesting to see what we come up with for 2017. We're going to record that show in the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned for our predictions show for 2017 in early January. I think that will come out. So we will we'll take a listen. We'll see what each of us come up with that, and we'll laugh and commiserate over those at the end of 2017.
There we go, definitely. Hey, I got a question for you. You got any picks?
I don't actually this week. I'm letting the side down, honestly.
That's okay. Keep it on vacation.
Yeah, my picks only include Johnny Walker Blue right now. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's... well, I mean, I've got that one too, but I mean, come on.
Yes.
All right, so I'll give you one or two. I'll give you two little short ones that I got here. So one is something called GetQL. It's a Git query language. So from the command line, once you install this and you start running it, you can do things like select message, date from commits where where a date is less than or equal to, say, 2016 January the 10th, and it lists out all the commits for you, the commit message and the date and everything.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a really good mix between having the git log or git log -- one, was it one line? But then being able to filter stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I went and installed it. So it's you have to have Go installed, the Go language on there installed. But yeah, it's pretty cool.
Awesome. I'd definitely check that out. We could use that in some of our scripts for sure.
Yeah, so that's one. The other one is a cool thing I'm going to keep your eye on there. It's called Test Cafe, and it's by Dev Express. It's if you're familiar with what Protractor is for Angular apps, and so Protractor is basically a way to do end-to-end browser testing of your application. This is very much the same thing, but it's not Angular specific. I'm still kind of poking around at it, but I like the way that they've written it. It's a Node.js based tool. It tests everything using ES 2016, so the latest JavaScript, even using things like async and await. There's a pretty slick API that goes along with it as well. The video looks pretty good. It's very early on. They've still got a lot of work to do on it, but definitely something to keep an eye on because it looks interesting, especially from a testing, being able to do with your test matrix and like a CI or CD process to be able to review this stuff. So I noticed this pop up on a Medium post earlier this week that was like the top web text you should keep an eye on for 2016.
Interesting. We use a thing called Ghost Inspector for some, I think, similar, right? It's UI automation testing for browsers. Kind of useful. But I will definitely check this out. Looks interesting.
Yeah. So
is it hosted, or it doesn't look like it's hosted? It looks like it's
no. You install it. It's very much like Protractor, where you install it via Node or via npm, and then you write your tests and you run all your tests. The exact same concept that like if you use like Karma or Jasmine or Mocha or any of those tools, like any of the test runners you normally have, it's like that.
So it's kind of I see. So it's not something you'd use in a CI/CD type environment.
Oh no, it is.
Oh, it
is. Yes, because it's the same. You would install it. You'd have it installed. So it'd be one of like your global installs that you'd have in your CI process, and then you write your tests. And the same way how you run your tests today, where you do say Karma or Mocha space, and then give it a list of your tests, or if you run your tests using Gulp or using an npm script, you do it the exact same way. You run your tests the same way, and it does everything through the command prompt.
It does it all headless.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool, very cool. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out then.
Yeah, so two little quick picks and ta-da.
Nice. Hey, well, good show. We wandered through some news. You caught me up on all the latest around Docker and some of the Kubernetes stuff. Talked about some document DB bits and pieces. A couple of good picks there as well. And then obviously our predictions and wishes for 2016 and how we did there. So I hope everyone enjoyed hearing about some of our hits and misses this year. Like I said, we will have another prediction show for 2017 in early January, so definitely tune in for that one.
Very cool. Very cool.
Thanks again, AC. Good to get back together after a week and a bit away in sunny Mexico. And all I'm looking for now is a double-strength pina colada.
I'll mix that right up for you, bud.
Thanks, man. Thanks. It would really help right about now. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, I won't talk to you until after the Christmas holiday, so Merry Christmas to you and your family.
Thanks, and likewise. We'll chat again soon. Cheers.
Absolutely.
Did you like this episode? Please tweet about it and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Word of mouth recommendations are the most effective ways for us to grow the show, and we'd really appreciate it. If you have a question for us, go to microsoftcloudshow.com/questions, where you can submit it as text or record it as a WAV or MP3 and provide us a link so we can play your question on the show. Our theme music is an excerpt from Evaporated Eric by Monk Turner, used under Creative Commons. You can subscribe to us in iTunes and the Google Play Store by searching for Microsoft Cloud Show or via RSS at microsoftcloudshow.com, where you'll also find show notes for each episode. You can also find us on Facebook searching for Microsoft Cloud Show or on Twitter at MS Cloud Show. And finally, sign up to our mailing list by heading to our website and entering your email to interact with us. Participate in upcoming interviews and other cool stuff. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.